seminars. My name is Sébastien Pérouse. I'm a research professor working with the Central Asia program at the Institute for European, Russian, and Eurasian Studies at George Washington University. So we are going to focus today on concerning and sad events that broke out in Gorno-Badakhshan, so in Tajikistan, Pamir region, a little bit more now than 10 days ago. And so far as we know, at least 50 people have been killed. And these events, of course, raise many questions on the reasons for this conflict, what this means for the Pamiri populations who are under the repression of the Tajikistan political authorities. This also raises many questions about the development of the region, stability, and what that also means for Rahman and his government. So to address these events, to address these many questions, we have three excellent speakers. I mean, who all know the region extremely well. So we have Sirojidin Tolibov, Suzanne Levit-Sanchez, and Samira Dildorbekova. So each speaker is going to present between 10 and 12 minutes. The presentations will be followed by a Q&A session. So please feel free to send me your questions in the chat box. I would like to thank you all for being with us today. So we're going to start with Sirojidin Tolibov, who is a managing editor of Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty's Tajik service. Sirojidin is an expert on security matters, Islamic groups, human rights, and social and economic issues in Central Asia. He has reported on operations against Islamic militants from the main hotspots in Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Afghanistan throughout his journalist career. And prior to Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Sirojidin spent 20 years with the BBC World Service Central Asians unit as a reporter, manager, news anchor, and editor. So Sirojidin, the floor is yours. And thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this, very important event, I think, because situation in Tajikistan remains very tense, especially in Gorno-Badakhshan region, which is very valuable, with extremely, nice people and a very ancient history. The current round of confrontation between the government forces and residents of Gorno-Badakhshan began back in November last year, after 29-year-old Gulbuddin Ziobekov, who was known as a local leader among the youth and as a local sportsman, was killed during while police forces were trying to arrest him. Rallies followed this incident, which escalated into clashes with the police, continued for several days, and thousands of people were killed. At least 3 people were killed, thousands of people were injured, including, from the local law enforcement agencies, officers. As a result, local authorities nevertheless agreed to make concessions and to make a deal with the local population, promising to objectively investigate the murder of a young Pamiri guy and punish those responsible, and also not to detain those who went to rally to demand justice. However, the investigation into Ziobekov's death was not yet brought visible results, and those immunity promised to participants of the rally were also not met. In addition to that, several leaders of Pamiri young people, in Russia were arrested, including that Amridin Alawachoyev. He was kidnapped first in Russia and then taken to Dushanbe. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison on charges of hostage-taking and illegal imprisonment of citizens. And similar scenario happened to Chorshanbe Chorshanbiev, a semi-professional MMA fighter from Badakhshan, who was very popular among the young people, among the youth of Pamir, and not only Pamir, but Tajikistanis as well, because he was very good, well-known vlogger. He had hundreds of thousands of followers on the various platforms of social media. He was also detained first in Russia and then brought to Tajikistan, and he was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. So that was the final drop into the anger of Badakhshani people. As a result, the next day, many people gathered and in Khorog and demanded, in addition to those previous requests, they put several other requests, including the resignation of leaders of Badakhshan, local authorities, including the government of Badakhshan province and the mayor of Khorog. And they also demanded, to withdraw all these, blog posts in Khorog. But this time, government was very angry, and they sent more troops, special forces, and used tear gases, and then bullets as well. As a result, this crowd of hundreds of people were dispersed. And the next day, in the center of Rushan, it's a district, police launched a special operation, and many people were killed. So first we learned that 21 people were killed. It is probably the worst event since 2012. So unfortunately, the government has hasn't responded, openly. The government is trying to, to stop people from talking about this. Even the semi-independent news websites were forced to keep silence, and they announced that they're not going to publish anything about the events in Badakhshan. Activists were arrested in Dushanbe, and several other cases were criminal cases were launched against well-known Pamiris in Dushanbe. Unfortunately, these may result, with further unrest in the region, not only in Badakhshan but other parts of Tajikistan. And we hear, different claims and accusations from the government now against donor states. The Tajik government published 2 documentaries, films on national TV, accusing former general, his ex-wife, who is well-known journalist and human rights activist, and Muhammad Baqir, who was killed also, several days ago. We don't know what's going to happen, but situation